Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. Gun control is a hot topic right now, and it's always a challenging subject because Republicans and Democrats typically sit on polar opposite sides of this issue, which means little gets accomplished. But that's also because there is a fundamental difference in the thought process of the right to bear arms and what the cost of that freedom may be. In America, we were given certain rights, but of course with those rights come responsibility. If you're over 21, you can drink alcohol, but if you don't do it responsibly, you can kill yourself and others. While the law makes it illegal for you to drive a car while drunk, people do it all the time. In this respect, the car becomes like a loaded gun. The fact that we can drive and can consume alcohol does not mean that we should do them at the same time. This is what I mean by the cost of freedom. The First Amendment protected our right to speech and assembly and exercise of religion. But the Second Amendment, which had to be important to those who wrote these, was a right to bear arms. The verbiage is being necessary to the security of a free state. Now, there are many debates about what a well-regulated militia might entail. It is clear the founders saw the necessity for responsible firearm ownership. However, there is a great debate over whether this amendment was designed as actually creating a right or merely preventing a national government from infringing upon it. And this goes back to the English Bill of Rights of 1689. And there were other pretexts that gave rise to the amendment that were common sense. For instance, without any militia, citizens might need weapons to prevent suspicious intruders in a town, or even quell a riot. Perhaps among the greatest reasons for being armed was self-defense. And to this day, most citizens legally purchase guns for the purpose of self-defense or hunting. Their intent is never for murder, suicide, or any other malevolent purpose. Before I digress into this any further, the reason I bring this topic up is not only because of the mass shooting in Nashville recently, but what the response to it has been. Oftentimes, Republicans offer thoughts and prayers, and Democrats push for more gun control, or even outlawing them outright. Neither of these two are sufficient, either on their own or taken together. 2 Tennessee legislators were expelled from the House for protesting with citizens and disrupting the order of the House of Representatives, which made national news. And then an NBA coach, Gregg Popovich, used his pregame press conference for the last game of the season to tackle the issue in a rather acerbic way. I want to dip in and out of his press conference, which kind of became an unexpected political speech. For starters, I think that sports journalists in press conferences ask some of the dumbest questions out there. But here is where we begin.
They actually protested. Those legislators called those kids that were protesting insurrectionists. That's hard to believe in America. But America ain't what we thought America was. It's changed. So if those kids are insurrectionists, what were the people on January 6th? What do we call them? What's the next step or word or level of violence after insurrectionists? I don't know what it is. You know, what will it take? I'm sure that, you know, people like Josh Hawley and the 3 people I mentioned here in Texas, I didn't mention their names, I mentioned their positions, or, you know, Lindsey Graham or Jim Jordan, whoever of them have kids or nieces or nephews or grandkids. Can they imagine that happening to theirs? Are they incapable of knowing what that's like? I mean, you know, I couldn't believe it, so I wrote this thing down. That Senator Marsha Blackburn, her comment after the massacre, my office is in contact with federal, state, and local officials, and we stand ready to assist. In what? They're dead. What are you going to assist with? Cleaning up their brains off the wall? Wiping the blood off the schoolroom floor? What are you going to assist with? And then there's Governor Lee. I'm sorry to go on and on, but Bill Lee. I'm closely monitoring the tragic situation. Please join us in prayer. What are you monitoring? They're dead. Children. They're dead. When I pick up my 6 and 11-year-old grandkids at school, when I'm here at home, on the way, it goes through my mind that I hope they're going to be okay. And most of you in this room, when we were in school, we worried if Nancy would dance with us on Friday after the football game or something. That was our anxiety.
Now, this feed came from a source inside the press conference, but it is conveniently excluded from the portion of the press conference posted by the San Antonio Spurs. I'm not sure why he went in this direction, but my understanding is that he asked if any of the reporters present had come to the press conference armed with a gun. He came with intent and bait. You see that he came ready with some printouts, so he wanted to discuss this. He wouldn't have quotes ready if that weren't the case. He referenced only Republican lawmakers, Josh Hawley, Jim Jordan, Lindsey Graham, and took even more direct aim at the Tennessee legislators, Senator Marsha Blackburn and Governor Bill Lee. Coach Popovich made the comment that the Republicans who expelled Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, who are black, out of the legislature, are likely people who would like to see the return of Jim Crow. What a racially charged statement to make. To that end, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and Justin Pearson's district is District 86 in Memphis, which includes some of the city's worst crime. Part of Pearson's district ends right at where Interstate I-55 loops around and intersects with Interstate I-240. In September of 2020, a lady who was on 4 illegal substances in the early afternoon on a Sunday struck a truck that my father and I were in. It killed my dad, and she also died in that accident, but I survived. I mention this because that is vehicular homicide. That woman took no responsibility, was driving on a suspended license, high on 4 drugs, and behind the wheel of a 2,000-pound gun. I pondered many times about what would have happened if we'd stopped for gas, or just been there a fraction earlier or later. But that's not what happened. This woman had broken several laws just by getting in the car that day, because she wasn't thinking of anyone but herself. She might not have driven with the intent to harm others or herself, but 2 people died because of it. In that sense, it's not really a car accident, as the police report states. She made the decision when she got behind the wheel. No one seems to look at automobiles as weapons, but they are. Furthermore, there's no barrier or median on this 6-lane major intersection where the speed limit is high. How can I trust a guy to represent this district, to protect me, if he can't even so much as place a simple concrete barrier or cable so that drivers can't hit oncoming cars in high-speed head-on collisions? Justin Pearson must not understand his district and the amount of guns already floating in his district, where gun, drug, and gang-related murders happen all the time. So expelling someone from the legislature doesn't come from racism, but from his desire to grandstand for an issue that the representative may fundamentally misunderstand. Popovich only sees it through the lens of racism and partisanship. Now, where I will agree with the coach is that you can't provide any reasonable explanation or comfort to the victims' families. They will never understand. But he thinks that showing the carnage and blood and aftermath at the school will make it more real for all of us, that we are just too removed from it to care, and that our freedom supersedes occasional innocent death. No. No death is acceptable. But these deaths are not on the hands of one political party. And until the conversation is criminal focused, not citizen focused or gun focused, then the debate will be much healthier. I come back to the fact that Coach Popovich never mentioned Audrey Hale's name or the emotional disorder she was suffering from. From Coach Pop's view, your freedom and your rights are not important. Your right to defend yourself, which is the rational basis for the Second Amendment, is not important. The idea to beef up sensible security, to make schools and churches fortresses of safety, is a bad idea only because it came from Ted Cruz. It is clear that Pop is looking with partisan glasses on, and until he can speak to the real issue, the criminal, the mindset, the means and methods, the lack of attention to the individual, he will always be a step behind in this conversation. The right to bear arms has always been a defensive or protective measure to prevent violence. Violence can only happen when a person takes that premise and does the opposite of its intent. Criminals have used guns, knives, planes, and cars to do serious harm to others. After 9/11, we thought differently about how we would have to fly and what security would be necessary. But we also looked at the source, the mentality of who would want to do this and how easy it was to do what they did. We didn't take flying away. We took away their ability to use a plane to kill people. And we even found out how they plotted. We have to start thinking about violent crime in that way. Start with the criminal mind, the motive, the mindset, the medication, the triggers, the impulses, the parenting, the patterns of behavior. That is where our focus should be. Not on the lawmakers of just one political party. Areas of some of the strictest gun control like Chicago and California have also some of the worst gun-related crimes. This past Easter weekend in New York City, within just 42 hours, 5 people were killed across 3 different boroughs via guns and knives. NYC has the 3rd strictest gun laws in the country. The legislative argument is a weak one right now. Coach Popovich has stated that he reads letters and feedback and tries to respond to each one if they are meritorious. Well, Coach, if you happen to see this show, I would welcome you on this show for us to have a sensible conversation so you can respond to some of my perceptions on what you've said. I find Coach to be pretty reasonable, but only looking at this through one lens and a simple look at his political donations show where his money goes.
Keep watching at epochtv.com/The Beau Show.